This is the Week Got Next podcast, episode 128. I dip, you dip, we dip. Bend but don't break. Facebook, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us on the live stream. Was that other stream bogus? No, it wasn't. It's the real one. This is the real one. No bogus here. If you're not joining us on the Facebook live stream, you should be. But if you're not, find us at We Got Next Podcast. Just search it. You'll find it. Icon with the microphone, the sports ball logos. But wherever podcasts are available, if you're watching this live, you can join us later. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, everywhere for free. Find it. You will. Instagram at We Got Next _pod. We're getting the Reels thing together. Don't worry. It's a work in progress. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it too. Voicemail line 370-0337. Complain to us all you want. Tell us we're wrong. Sometimes we are. But I didn't hear you say nothing about it. Call the voicemail line. Let us know. I'm John. You heard Joe giggling, super producer with the supercomputer.
They did not. I'm in the shadows. Secrets.
Oh, you didn't hear him. Never mind. He's in the shadows. It's secret, he said. We got a lot to get into. The NBA has a gambling problem, everyone. Straight up. Pick your destination. Joe's got some fun tidbits at the buzzer. You going to tease that, or are we going to do what we did last week?
No, I got it. Make your mark, a shout out, and for all the world to see. It's called, I'll give you another hint on that one. It's called a splattle. Yeah, let's answer that question later.
That does not sound good. Facebook, question of the night. You saw me on the Facebook page. I asked it about 10 minutes prior. Is the NFL getting soft? We got all these rules and whatnot over here. Let's talk about it, right? Meow. I said that because Joe's dog's barking. Cats don't bark. Actually, my cat barks. It's crazy. He's crazy. NFL has a new set of rules for this upcoming season. A lot of them don't really change the game too much. Two big ones actually do. Kickoffs, we'll start with this. We'll now start with the receiving and kicking teams set on the 30 and 35-yard lines, respectively, with the kickoff being punted to the receiving player. So this is different from the ball being on a tee with the kicker running into it, and the teams starting essentially almost 50 yards back, getting like a full sprint run. They're limiting contact to make the collision sport, not contact sport, it's collision sport, to make it a little bit safer. I don't really know if that's a thing you could do, potentially. The XFL has already been doing this as of last year, for those that watched it, not me. There is a clip going around. Adam Schefter shared it on his Twitter X page. It looks okay. It's fine. The punt goes in, the guy catches the ball, but the players are literally like 5 yards apart, and one team facing the way that the kick is going, the receiving team obviously facing the direction that they're going to be running. And it'll take some getting used to, because you don't want to. Some teams have special teams as like the third dimension in what makes them a great football team. It will take some getting used to, because it did look weird when I watched it on that XFL replay, but I think it makes sense with them being at least 5 yards apart. You're still getting the kickoff, so they're not completely doing away with that. Fair or foul, Joe? You like that one?
I do like this one, actually. The XFL one didn't make sense to you?
It did.
Here in DFW, we have a local XFL team, the Arlington thing. Dudes.
The Arlington Arlanders.
No,
the Arlanders.
The Arlanders. No, it makes sense to me, because it's like, it's a slightly safe being the quote safe being the operative word. It's a slightly safer kind of way to do the kickoff, but it also leans towards the entertainment part of it.
Elijah says they're called the Renegades.
Oh yeah, duh. Yeah, that makes sense.
The chumps of the league.
It is a more entertaining setup for the kickoff. It does have I feel like tactically you have to make some decisions, because the kicker, not that the kicker's ever involved in making a tackle, but you do have one less person there at that point. So okay,
you just made me think of something actually worth thinking. okay, you don't need everyone to run up the field, right? You want to play like a zone, like a kind of protect coverage, like you know how you can like rush. You can rush, or you can like drop like 3 guys back if you wanted to do that. You could essentially do that. I don't know what the rule specifically states. The Athletic, actually, this was from ESPN. It didn't have like the rules in it, but you could have players essentially. You have 7 or you have 10 up front. They all run, but you have 3 drop back. That'd actually be kind of cool. You can have formations like that for the kickoff since it's essentially a punt. It looks weird, but I think, yeah, that adds a whole nother thing to it because now you could have your fastest guy potentially not get it in the end zone for a touchback. So it actually increases the likelihood of the player catching the ball and running out.
Yeah, and I like that it lends itself to different personnel tactics. So it's not just going to be, because I know they have certain punt packages too, depending on where they are, how close they are to the end zone if they're that far back receiving the punt. I do like that it lends itself to a different structure, but also at the same time, it's like you're still gonna have dudes mashing into each other. So like that's the entertainment part of it, where it's like, oh yeah, dudes are gonna get clobbered, or somebody could break open a run and then run it back for a thing. That's one thing I had seen on the posts, or several posts that had come up. They were like, oh yeah, like they've essentially eliminated the returning for a touchdown, like that part of the excitement of the game. It's like, but that didn't happen that often. Like it was a big deal when Devin Hester did it, 8 times in a season or something like that. Like,
yeah, your Devin Hesters, your Dante Halls back then. Yeah.
I do think it's definitely a good move for the NFL because it brings that entertainment factor that adds to the watchability of the game. Because aren't there like TV timeouts after some kickoffs? It's like, all right, they got the kickoff and it's a fair catch or whatever.
Let's take our 90 seconds timeout. 2-minute time. Yeah.
Or they had an integrated broadcast in the last few years where it's like a picture in picture with the commercial running side by side or something like that. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that they're leaning itself towards is entertainment. Bring that back.
Facebook, this question is put out to you. Do you like these rules? Do you like these new rules? Let us know in the comments. I'll shout you out. I promise. Cross my heart. Hope to catch a kickoff punt. What actually intrigues me about that too is onside kick potential. It's like almost the same thing. Like they're not that far apart from each other, but they're just further down the field now for this new kickoff.
Yeah, and it
looked cool. It looked interesting, and there was still players trying to return it too. So it's not like it was complete. It wasn't one-sided for the receiving team or the kicking team in either direction. I'm okay with that one.
That somebody was telling me too, or the comment that I had seen were like the tactics of an onside kick. There goes the surprise of like an onside kick or something like that with this type of kickoff setup. But also at the same time,
how many times that's happened in the NFL that was like of notoriety? The Super Bowl, the Saints. Yeah.
It's like a surprise onside kick formation, but most of the time you're gonna stack the side one way or the other, and it's a tip off. Like they're gonna know that you're running an onside kick, so it's like you're finding something else to gripe about when they're changing the rules for your entertainment. Like just dial it back a little bit.
Well, speaking of griping, another new rule: if there's a foul, if the players use the following technique to bring a runner down. What this episode is actually named after. A, you grab the runner with both hands or wrap the runner with both arms, and you unweight yourself by swiveling or dropping your hips onto the lower body. So like on the ankle or like anywhere below the knee pretty much. So the hip drop rule is what it's called. And,
is that like you wrap someone up and you like swing to pull them down? Is that what the...
No, it's like if you grab them by the waist and just like kind of dead weight yourself. On their legs. Yeah, that's what it's preventing. Numerous injuries happened last year. It wasn't like an epidemic of ankle injuries, but there was one that was season ending for sure. Players were not in favor. Plenty were. JJ Watt, for example. He's like, we might as well bust out the flags. Better get the hip flags ready.
Maybe that might be more entertaining. Who knows?
Kenyon Drake is he was injured in 2021. He is among one of the supporters of the rule. He's like, I don't care about popular opinion. I lost my right ankle in the quarter of the 21 season type of tackle. Something has had to give, and I'm glad it's not anybody else's legs or ankles anymore. So he's a proponent for the rule, which does make sense. Like if something like this had happened to you, of course you'd be like, yeah, I think just get rid of it. I wish they had put this rule in effect in 2020. So it didn't happen to me in 21. Is this you for or against this one? I'll ask you first.
I barely understood it whenever I read it, and I kind of got an explanation. I'm sure there'll be like talking heads breakdowns of it, or there already have been. But I mean, I'm all for erring on the side of caution for NFL players. Like the NFL could be kind of a meat grinder for some players, and like you always hear about stories of like careers that were cut short due to injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's gonna be hard to. It'll be kind of hard to govern given how fast the game is, though, and like especially when you have a bunch of bodies piling up on one side of the line of scrimmage or the other, or when a play develops, it can be obscured. But I think it's a good move. It might be hard to regulate. Don't be crying when this works against your team at some point this season.
Elijah in the comments, supposedly the flag football on the pro level is more dangerous for ankles and Achilles injuries.
Especially that's a good point, right. Especially with players playing on turf. Like that's been compounding a bunch of different things, and you always hear players griping about it. Wasn't there a football league match somewhere where they played on turf and they were like, yeah, this is embarrassing. Crap, I can't remember what team was visiting, but they came over to the States and they do like tours for like, hey, watch our team play, Americans. Like they were playing on turf, even though the team that was hosting, or the football team that was hosting, had grass. They're like, no, we're gonna switch that out. And then they played on turf, and a bunch of people were like slipping and stuff. They're like, yeah, this sucks. So yeah, it would just
keep it grass. Like what was wrong with grass? I know upkeep and maintenance like increase the cost to your franchise, but I mean, it's better for the players. Your cleats aren't getting stuck and almost anchored into the turf.
Yeah, exactly.
I played indoor on turf, and I don't have like long studded cleats for that. It's just like the indoor like rubber like millimeter cleats, pretty much. And even then, like you can find yourself just getting all tripped up. Not necessarily running like in straight line running, but like making cuts and stuff like that. Just make sure to pick up your feet. I'm for this rule. I understand why there's a little bit of controversy around it, especially from defensive players, i.e. JJ Watt, former defensive player. He's retired. But with Kenyon Drake saying his part of it being the player that would be potentially affected by this, running back, wide receiver, quarterback in some instances. If that happened to a quarterback, though, like you might as well just be out of the league. Like you're done. NFL's like, oh, you can't go down on Josh Allen like that and rip his ankle to shreds. Get off the planet. They wouldn't do that. But yeah, I'm for this one. This one makes sense. It'll be harder for the players to adjust to doing this since they've had almost a decade of football experience, maybe more than that. Just tackling a certain way that they do, it's a little bit iffy. But at the same time, if it increases longevity of some players, which is what you want, because this product is now an additional week longer, having that week 18 action going down, anything that helps the players further either their career or their season, I think is good. Sign me up for that. Trade deadline. Here's another one that got approved over this last week. The trade deadline is now a week later, as opposed to, I think it was in week 15. It got bumped to week 16. There's 3 challenges in total now for the head coaches. Coaches no longer have to win their first 2 challenges to get a third. Now they only have to win 1 of their first 2 challenges to be awarded a third. Which means either way, you get 3, you lose 1. It says 1 of your first 2. So you can lose your first one and then still have challenge number 2. So you get 3. Just like, yeah, you get 3. This article didn't elaborate on that going into like overtime or anything. So I'm assuming you still get 3 in OT2, especially with the playoffs being a little bit different. We actually got to see in the San Francisco game, San Francisco Detroit game, that the new overtime rules did take into effect, and we saw it in the Super Bowl also. Teams not realizing that they had lost the Super Bowl. But with these rules put in for the coaches challenges, I think it makes it a little bit, it's not considered as much of a risk since you have 3 full challenges now, especially if you get your first one, you get your second one right, you're going to be perfect. All right, cool. I still have a third one in the bag if you're good at making challenges. Elijah says, have we thought about just having all NFL games or exclusively inside of Madden versus the field? Injuries will be mitigated to weak wrists and thumbs. Get that weak wrist action out of here.
Hey, don't they? I thought they got rid of the esports stuff for Madden.
You might be right, just because of how those, I don't know, just how they hold the tournaments had a lot to do with that. Cheating, game be cheating, all of that stuff. I wouldn't want to play Madden in a tournament anyway. We haven't done that. We haven't done that since college. More rules and are you for the 3 challenges, Joe? Yay?
Yeah, I like the fact that it's like it's mitigating some of the risk that they take for strategy. Like there are clutch situations probably where you could use an extra challenge. I think that's pretty helpful. It slows the game down though, and you're gonna hear people cry about that too. But I like that it's opening up tactics for how they'll coach the game and how players, not necessarily how they play the game, but how the dynamics can change a little bit. So it's like you got to be a little more sound on some of your execution.
Here's another one. This one probably won't get too much recoil. Enforcement of fouls on change of possession plays. So during a play that will result in a possession change, like a punt, for example, if the fouls are committed by both teams, any major offensive fouls like unnecessary roughness that were committed before the possession change will now be enforced. So you'll add on those penalty yards after the play. Yay or nay on that one? It just prevents people from doing stupid things, pretty much. It's like, oh, I can get away with this thing. Like, it's a little bit more on the enforcement side of it. Of, hey, you can't just pop this dude while like you're tangled up, going back to your sidelines or whatever. Like, you can't do stuff like that.
It seems like a weird rule to add. It's like, how did y'all overlook this before? It's like, oh, you're trying to prevent unnecessary roughness or unsportsmanlike conduct. Like, cool. You have an official rule for it. I think it's probably, again, to play it safe, they'd rather have the rule in place so that way if they have to rule around it, I think that's really more where the wiggle room comes from, because we've seen officiating mishaps this last season and even the season prior.
I'm not all the way for this rule. I understand it, but if something drastic must have happened, and the article from Yahoo had the teams who voted for and against some of these things, but apparently that one was unanimous. So no one had a problem with it. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Another one, Joe, yay or nay? Changes to replay. Nope, not emergency third quarterback. Wrong thing. Changes to replay. The replay assistant will now be allowed to correct objectively, quote, objectively incorrect calls for intentional grounding and roughing the passer. Replay reviews will be allowed, quote, when there is a clear and obvious visual evidence that the game clock expired before any snap. So that ruling of a passer down by contact or out of bounds before throwing a pass are now reviewable plays. Yay or nay on this one?
I wonder...
I'll say I'm against this one, only because, again, you're going to get that stoppage of play. And a lot of football that I watched last year had it get down to double zeros before anything happened. They were essentially waiting a second after double zeros to blow the play dead. But then because you let it get that close, you had all these plays that just kind of kept going off and nobody really enforcing it. Now that it's a reviewable play, like, it prevents you from, oh man, they got a free play out of that. And then
yeah,
they should be 5 yards back.
Okay, I had to reread it. Sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, I'm a little bit against that one just because of potentially slowing down more of the game.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Chuck says the kickoff rule is great. Shout out to Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck. See, I agree. That sounds awesome. Okay, so with that, I think it sounds like they're adding more options for things to be considered reviewable, which is good. But again, because some people or some teams have been burned by that in the past. Many a playoff run has been doomed because of it. But I think it's good that it's adding to the pool of things that can be reviewed, because like we've seen with VAR, in international football.
Oh God, don't start.
No, I'm saying like it's good that they're adding to the pool of things that can be reviewed, because then it's like, okay, we want to try to be as fair as possible. Yeah. Again, you're going to get a drawback though, with it being, it's going to take time to do that. So I like that they're adding to things that can be reviewed. And it gives the officials a little more. They make a call and then a call can be overturned, because that was one thing that just sucks to see. Whenever they make a call and then there was nothing that could happen after the fact, whether there was a review or not. So I think that helps the game a little bit.
We were watching Arsenal play in the Champions League match. Suck it, Porto. But in watching that, one of the commentators had said, like, at what point do you stop letting like human error determine the game? Like, yeah, someone messed up something in soccer. At least you can at least go back and call it later. Like, oh, hey, yeah, we can disallow that goal. In football, you really can't do that. But to where it gets to the point where you can't effectively officiate a game, I think it even takes them out of a rhythm too. Some of the referees, you don't allow them to make their own decisions, and it'll get to the point where they're reviewing everything, and then they'll have another committee meeting of owners, and then you're going to backtrack all of these rules that you approved, and then it's just going to... It's good that it's not set in stone, but the back and forth and it being so flimsy, I think, will be a problem in the future. But for this to have it's getting to the point where almost everything is reviewable. At what point does it take away from like the human aspect of the game? I know you're trying so hard not to make any mistakes happen. The most egregious one in the instant replay era was the Saints game against the Vikings. Clear pass interference. Yeah. Nothing happened, and one team did not benefit from that, thinking that they should have went to the Super Bowl. I don't think they should have. I don't think they would have got that far anyway. But in saying that, it's like, at what point do you start just having eyes on everything, a digital eye on everything, and then it just kind of takes away from the game, doesn't it?
Yeah, then like pretty much every rule that's been for like any part of the review process, like that was always going to be, that was a concern when video review came up, and it's still a concern now. So like I like that there should be I like the point you made about there should be some empowerment to the referees.
To the head ref. Yeah, give it to the head ref.
There should be some empowerment for them to make the right call, instead of just like, I'll make a call and then it can go to review. Because like we've seen that happen in all sports that have that video review. I do think it does slow the game down. Again, just mentioned it several times in this segment that we've been doing. You can't get away from that. Like there's always going to be a trade-off in sport, whether it's like when the 3-point line was invented in basketball, it's like, oh,
that was the example I was going to use.
Yeah,
I was going to bring that up.
I was going to say that's the trade-off you get. It's like, okay, teams are going to shift the way they play, and then players are going to develop differently. Like we see the body type of players now are different. Bigs can be inside or outside, stuff like that. Tactics change, the way people coach change, the way people recruited or drafted for the NBA change. So like that's going to be part of the growing pains of having a system like this. It does take away from the flow of the game, though. I'm not really a fan for that.
Shout out to everyone in the comments. Elijah chipping in. Chuck, as always, love hearing from you, dude. You want to have a human element, he says, but you also want to get the call right. It's just a delicate balance.
Exactly.
If we do this too much, then they rely on it too much.
Yeah, and no, I agree. It can be I like the action of the game, which is why I don't watch the NFL, because there's too many starts and stops. But like,
when you understand like the play calling of it and like the tactics aspect of it, that's how I get more into it too. I mean, Dallas doesn't really give me much to root for, but I get into all of that just based on like seeing everything from. I mean, I don't have the all 22 view, but I get more into the game seeing that, and then you want this to be a good product for the casual viewer. Wives or boyfriends or spouses that don't really fully watch this game getting into it because it's like, oh, okay, it's like not necessarily like nonstop action, because I don't think you could do that with the American game. Rugby you can, sure, whatever, but you don't want it to get too bogged down with getting everything right, like down to the millimeter. Chuck says it's now a little dangerous because of social media. If it takes 5 minutes, you got to look at 10 different angles. It's not conclusive. So that's a good point to make there too. It's like we want to make sure we get everything right, but also we want to make sure that we don't blow something that's obvious. Like, how do you have a training for that? That's a little bit of a balance beam act that more than likely the referees are getting racked on. Spurs going down tomorrow. Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, we had a 2-game win streak. Ring the bells, Joe.
Yeah, 2 games.
2-game win streak. Ring those bells. Emergency quarterback is the last rule. We'll go through this quickly. Emergency third quarterbacks who are available to play in case the starter and the backup are ejected or injured can now be elevated from both the 53-man roster and the practice squad now. So last season, emergency QBs could only be elevated from the 53-man roster, which means the spot was already taken for that, for them to get bumped up. Now you can be on the practice. Yeah or nay on that one?
I think this is actually highlighting the problem that the NFL had in the last decade.
I was just thinking about that too.
It's highlighting the problem of like, are there quality quarterbacks left? Like that's what it's coming down to for this. It's like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel so we can have teams play a game instead of like, on the rare occasion, if it's ever happened in the NFL, like running backs playing quarterback, or like certain people that used to play quarterback in like high school or college, like they would get subbed in for that. This is actually kind of a glaring problem. Like the fact that they had to make this rule, sure, but it's also like, hey everybody, let's put front and center in this. This is probably listed in the rules. Like they listed this document, they typed it out. It was probably like a footnote at the bottom. Oh yeah, by the way, we got this. They just had the rule. It's like NFL rule QB-R12, and then it just had an asterisk next to it. And then at the bottom, it was like, oh, here's what this rule is. Like, I think it's glaring. It's glaring because of like your talent fall off between QB1, even just from one QB1 to QB2. But also all the way to your third, where you didn't even have him on the initial roster to begin with, and now it's like, yeah, that should probably be a thing. Which I think it astounds me more that this rule wasn't made like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't know. That just blows my mind for that. I'm here for this rule. Give me emergency quarterback being able to be pulled up from the practice squad. That doesn't bother me. All right, Joe, let's get into it. Chuck will like this one too. The NBA has a gambling problem. It needs help. It needs to call that 1-800 hotline that is the disclaimer where they talk really quickly. You need to pay attention to that number, NBA. On the heels of the Shohei Ohtani interpreter thing, Jesus. NBA player Jonte Porter has been suspended indefinitely. According to the report, the league is investigating 2 specific games where there was increased betting interest on the under for several of Porter's prop bets. The first game occurred the 26th of January, Raptors versus the Los Angeles Clippers. He played only 4 minutes of that game and then left due to an eye injury he sustained days earlier. Porter finished with no points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and did not attempt a three-pointer, which allowed the under to hit on all 4 of those categories. The under on Porter's three-pointers was the biggest money winner for bettors on all NBA props. Through a certain sports book. We're not going to give them a shout out for that, according to ESPN, when this article came out. And then more on March 20th, here recently, when the Raptors played the Suns, Porter played just 3 minutes before he was ruled out due to an illness. He had like mud butt or something.
Chuck, why is there even bets on this guy?
Out tonight, parentheses, mud butt.
Mud butt. Yep, mud butt. The under hit once again on the 3 categories of he played 3 minutes and he was ruled out. Finished with no points, 2 rebounds, and missed a shot. And that was through another high-end sports book. And according to the report, upwards of $10,000 to $20,000 bets placed on Porter's unders. Joe, you asked me a question.
Yeah, I'm with Chuck on this. Why were there even bets on this fool? Like, you should have known something, right? Is this not a dead giveaway, John? Of something's afoot here, right?
Something's a foul. What makes it worse is that it wasn't just him doing it, but it was like multiple people placing bets on Porter's over unders. So in actuality, he could have potentially let a network of people know, like, hey, I'm gonna shit myself, and then I'm not gonna play this game anymore. That happens, and then he tells his homies about it, or he tells his homies who tell their homies about it.
You said these were like prop bets, right? I'm looking in the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's prop bets. So basically, it's like 3 categories. I don't think you can necessarily. All this according to Woj, by the way, from ESPN.
Yeah.
The prop bets are typically limited to $2,000 per bet maximum, and people were making $10,000 to $20,000 off of that.
Yeah.
Chuck says mostly because of they need to figure it out. Mostly because of it affecting the integrity of the game and how the trickle down goes into college. Elijah goes on to say, who regulates insider trading in sports betting?
The league does.
Nobody does. And here's the problem with this. You can't make a bet on an NBA game. So in your respective league, you cannot do that. The NFL also says the same thing. If you're in the league, you can't bet on the league. That makes sense, right? Duh. If you're in the facilities, you cannot make a bet on anything. So you can get one of your boys to jump on your account. Hey, I just heard this thing. He shit himself again. So put on the unders.
It's somebody that works like in the tunnels or in the locker room or something. It's like, hey man, it's be mad stinky over here. Like you might need to. I just saw so and so.
His eyeball hurt. Porter's eyeball hurts again. That's the thing about this is that
a lot. Yeah,
he's got some dry eye in here. That's the only thing that they can do is they can tell you do not bet on your league, and you cannot make bets within the grounds, like on the grounds. You cannot do that, and that's it. That's all they can tell you. They can't say, "Hey, you can't do this" outright. You know why? Pull the covers over the top of me and you. They're in bed together. That's why. Big league and gambling sponsor. That makes it extremely difficult to actually monitor everything when everything is being monetized.
Yeah, because then it's also like it adds to the. It can make that a weird partnership because it's like, hey, we're gonna crack down really hard on sports betting, but we love our sponsor. Like, you know, like it's weird because to the comments point, it does kind of ruin the integrity. Let's make one up
so we can actually say it without saying like the sports book. Thanks to MagiBets for getting me. For getting me all my Porter action.
Watch that be a real thing.
I hope MagiBets is not a thing. They did not sponsor.
That's supposed to be like magic and bets put together, y'all. For those that don't know,
that's it. Joe figured it out.
Yeah, it's like you have all these leagues sponsored by MagiBets, and then they are cracking down on players that are using MagiBets. Like, it's not a good look. Like, of course, too. I mean, we're all about players securing the bag, but also this seems like the dumbest way to do it because you're gonna get caught. Like,
I think it's because of us as competitors. We know we don't want to violate like the purity of competition. We understand that. Hey, I want to make sure I get my like untampered talent coming at me and giving me your best versus me giving you my untampered best. I get that.
Yeah, because then if they end up connecting all this stuff, the allegations end up like being proven right. Then it's like, oh man, like this dude just like shaved points or they played the worst version of this team at this current juncture, especially
Joe,
at this time of year. Like, that's crazy.
What could potentially happen, Joe? This will keep Jonte Porter out of the.
Oh crap! You got to do that again.
I said, you know what's potentially going to happen is Jonte Porter is not going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Oh no, that sucks.
This fool is not going to the Hall of Fame. So Elijah said, so it's even illegal if it is illegal to play if a player tweets, quote, "I will not score more than 20 points today." Probably.
Yeah, that would definitely be illegal, because then it's like you would immediately get bookies getting a flood of all kinds of bets. It's like, oh, this fool, we're gonna take the under, or like less than 20, but the under is 10. Like, oh, we're gonna take the over. Like, he's not gonna score more than 20. Whatever. Like, it's just bad. Like, anytime. Also, if somebody did that, that would just be incredibly stupid, because it's like, oh, well, a team's like, they're not gonna want to keep a dude like that. Why would they do that?
It's like, oh man, Brunson is 2 points away, and he had a chance to score, and the Knicks were at home, favored to win, and he didn't want to take this three because he cut himself off at 28 points, and then the Knicks lose, and Wemby wins.
Good. Sorry, Knicks.
Sorry, not sorry.
I know it sucks. They used to be like kind of the butt of the joke, and now they're like kind of good.
and now it's the other way around. Like San Antonio is.
Yeah.
But no one enforces that, Elijah. By the way, the league just has like a mandate on it. They don't have. They have people like checking IP addresses, but that's about as big as it gets. That's it.
And then
like,
they kind of like. It like, cause some of these things blow up on social media too. It's like whenever it's like Drake bet how much, or like, it's stupid, but whenever it blows up like that, then it pings the radar, and then they're like, we need to look at this, and then they just kind of look at it, I guess. Like, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna get worse before it gets better, I think. Joe, pick your destination. Where you want to
go? To any of the teams that Primetime played for.
Oh no. Deion Sanders says the NFL teams can expect his son Shador. Whoa. And Colorado's two-way star Travis Hunter to navigate their way. You're messing me up, dude.
Hey, you're messing me up.
To navigate their way out of being drafted into bad situations in next year's draft. Sanders mentioned San Francisco, Dallas, Washington, and Baltimore specifically as possible landing spots for his son and for Travis Hunter, who last year Sanders referred to as his fourth son. Which is, I think it's a little weird.
Oh, no.
That's weird. In 2004, famously, I wanted to have a guest on who is a Giants fan. Hey, Chuck, you like New York. In 2004, Eli Manning said he would not play for the San Diego Chargers. And I don't think Eli Manning said it. I think it was more Archie than Eli. San Diego drafted him and then was promptly and swiftly traded to the New York Giants, where Manning won 2 Super Bowls. Joe, ask me a question.
No, should players be allowed to pick the team? Also, is the draft dumb?
The draft is dumb, yes. Should players be allowed to pick their teams? Yes. Do we live in that world? No. None of these teams are situated for either of these players. I don't see Dallas trying to draft a quarterback when they just got one in free agency. Washington has a whole new system being set up there, especially with Cliff Kingsbury jumping in that mix, offensive coordinator. Potentially, I don't know, that could be good for Sanders. But Baltimore and San Francisco, you already have kind of an established thing that they do with their guys there, who are, I don't know, 2 of the best players in the NFL. So, no.
To Chuck's point, he made a good point here. Academy systems are really cool. Yep, that's what they do for like English football, European football in general. They build up a player and they do all these things, but you're cutting into the money of all the sports made off of college. So That's, I think, where academy systems get shut down in the States, because it's like, we're pulling money away from this giant entity that is the NCAA. Maybe that's not allowed, or they'll like lobby hard enough for it or something else.
Hey, put them in the bed. Get a menage going with them, the professional leagues and the sports bettors. Just like, hey, get in here. That's a California king. We got space.
Oh God.
He said, but no one is going to Carolina. No, who would want to live in the shadow of Cam Newton and I can't even. Darnold, I think, went there last year.
Julius Peppers.
He was awesome. Julius Peppers was awesome. But I kind of agree with this, and we at the Week on Next podcast are all about the players getting that bag. But I mean, help the team out. These players ain't going to help the team by picking where they want to go. And it's almost always not going to work the way that you think it's going to work either. So think about that, Dion. Joe.
Even with him being, last point, even with him being a former star of the NFL, it's like you're going to be hard pressed to pull some sway for all these teams that are vying for talent, especially quarterback beleaguered teams at that, especially with that third string thing opening up. You never know.
I think that's a good point. That's a good point. I will say this: you could use this as a recruiting tactic if you're Dion. He's smart, Joe. Big brain move right here. I will vouch for you to go somewhere else if you have potential high draft value. I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that when you play for Colorado, you also play somewhere good in the NFL. I can see that being a tactic.
Yeah, definitely a definite recruiting tactic for sure. Maybe.
All right. Part of everyone's balanced breakfast, and probably the favorite part of the show. It's at the buzzer.
Yes. We're going to start off at the buzzer with the shout out. Shout out to the United States men's national team. They are the 2024 CONCACAF Nations League champs. It's looking good, dude. The U.S. is developing very nicely. In your face, Mexico.
Or is it Berhalter?
Ooh, probably a little bit of both. Like them playing, a lot of U.S. players are playing overseas in very prestigious leagues, and they're coming back and romping and stomping. First one, make your mark. Oh boy. From the UFC, this one. The UFC on ESPN 53 undercard bout of Andre Lima versus Igor Severino. The match was declared a disqualification for Severino for biting Lima while in a grapple. Severino was immediately cut from the UFC, and Lima got a $50,000 bite bonus.
How is that a thing?
Lima said he felt sorry for Severino when he got cut. He was like, it's sad because we came from the same background, basically. He's like, he struggled a lot too, just like I did. He has a family, all that stuff. But also, if you have all that on the line, don't freaking bite someone in a sanctioned match like this. He felt so bad that he got a tattoo of the bite when his manager suggested it. What's more surprising from this, the bite, the tattoo, or the immediate release from the promotion?
I think the release makes sense because nobody as a fighter does that. Mm-hmm. The last time someone famously did that, he's going to take that to his grave unless he whoops up on your boy.
Not my boy. Not my boy.
But even that being said, I think the more surprising thing is the tattoo. He said it was his manager's idea to get the tattoo, and that thing was deep too. Like in that video, you could see those welts like just sunk into the skin.
Yeah, there's like divots from the teeth, and it's like either this dude's got a tiny mouth, or he just so happens to just kind of come over and just like nibble.
Or he's like, if I decrease my surface area, I can bite really hard in this focused area,
in a concentrated spot, and maybe get away with it. No one will see the bite, but like that's crazy, dude.
The replay too is blatantly obvious too. Like, but getting a tattoo for that, like that rubs it in. You can't say you feel bad for the dude and then make fun of him.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing too. He said he was like, I don't want the bite to be like the thing that I'm known for in my career. Like I want to be a really good, MMA fighter, champion, and all that stuff. It's like you're starting off on the right track. Next one here, game recognized game, John. In a great bit of secure the bag news here, Ice Cube of the Big 3 League has offered Caitlin Clark a staggering $5 million to join in. Quote Ice Cube here. He was like, the skeptics are laughing when Nancy Lieberman was the first female coach, and she won in her first year. Same thing, Lisa Leslie won it in year 2. He says, with our offer, Caitlin can make history and break down even more barriers for women athletes. If Clark accepts, she'll be able to play both in the Big 3 and the WNBA. John, is this a better move for Clark, the Big 3, or sports as a whole?
Shout out to Nancy Lieberman and Lisa Leslie, by the way. I think this benefits Clark more than anybody. I mean, she's already making that bag before she got out. She's not even in the league yet. She's not even in the dub. She's not even in the association. This is good for her already. I don't like that it got leaked the way that it did. I know they were trying to keep this private, but I mean, it was going to come out at some point. I think it benefits her more than anything. The Big 3 next, but I also think it hurts the WNBA. Strictly because it already mars your image of not being able to pay your players, and that's why they're going overseas. Mm-hmm. So if we domesticate our talent, then we can keep them here. Hey, join this league. Would she be the first woman in the Big 3?
No, I think they have co-ed teams. A couple of people playing in co-ed teams. I think co-ed teams are kind of cool for that league because it's like you get a big, maybe you get like a guard, and then you get some sort of forward or something like that, and you get a mix of all 3 of them. I think that would be awesome to see. It wasn't a whole lot of draw for me to watch the Big 3, but also like now it's actually developing into something. For leagues, y'all, the first couple years tend to be the roughest, but I feel like they got something going here. Last one.
I think it's big time for her.
Last one here for all the world to see. During an NCAA wrestling meet, Ohio State's Jesse Mendez put his opponent from Nebraska in a move called the Splattle. In an amazing set of grappling, Mendez hooked both his opponent's legs, and imagine this if you will. You're laying on your back, and your legs are splayed open, and they're hooked above your head. Gooch out to the world. That's what happened. Oh, man. Comments, IG posts, Twitter posts, all that abound. John, is this the one of the most embarrassing things that happens to someone in recent sports?
Outside of getting, like, biting somebody and getting suspended, yeah, this is one of the worst things that could have happened to anybody. We see people get hit in the nuts all the time, like on like a foul ball or like a bad pitch or whatever.
We see people get dunked on, We see
people like slip, like, get their ankles broke. This is one of the worst things that could happen to you.
So it's a collegiate wrestler. Should they just get out the game after this? Like I'm good. I gotta go.
Put it on your highlight reel. Like, if you're trying to get picked up by like some Olympic recruiters, just like, hey, look, I'm flexible. I can get out of the jam.
I think they ended up losing that match.
Oh, then never mind. Yeah, don't put it in. Change your name. Change your name. Change your nationality. Go wrestle for Canada.
Mendez ended up winning, and then Ohio State ended up getting the chip too. So it's like, man, that's carving a path to success, one splattle at a time.
Good job. Good job. Good job, Mendez. Way to go.
Oh, that's it. No corrections today. We were perfect.
Solid shooting from the floor, Joe. Good job.
Yes,
I did all the assists. I was about to score 2 more points, and then they told me not to.
Yep.
So I just started passing.
It's not that they subbed you. It's not that they subbed you out. They just...
I just stopped.
Don't do that.
They're like, don't do that anymore. I was like, all right, just stop.